My name's Ella and I'm here on the behalf of the UKMHA, speaking to Gillian Reed, the Managing Director of Still, for the UKMHA Female Leadership Campaign. So, Gillian, could you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role here at Still?
Of course, and good morning again, Ella. So Gillian Reed, but Jill is what I'm known as around here. I am a wife, a mum of two, but I'm also, the managing director of Still UK. So I've been in this role now for this is my third year, so 3 years as the MD, but I've been in Still 11 years now.
So, as the Managing Director, what are your key responsibilities here?
So ultimately, it's about the people.
Mm.
So my responsibility is for all of the colleagues that work for Still UK, and therefore the customer service we give, the products we sell and service, our obviously our financial performance, and just growing the company and making sure we have a stable, secure, and successful operation here.
Could you talk to us a bit about your career journey
Yeah,
and how you got here?
yeah, of course. So as I said, 11 years still.
Mm-hmm.
Third year MD, I actually joined as the service manager, or head of service, I think the title was at the time, back in 2014, and then did that for 8 years. I was made service director after a couple of years, and then was asked to become the MD back in 2022. Um, it was a interesting journey because coming into an industry that I was not familiar with at all.
No.
But service is a great grounding, understanding the operation, because fundamentally that's at the core of our customer base. See us in service. Because we have a very large customer base across the UK and it's the biggest part of our workforce. I learnt a lot very quickly working in service, and then felt that coming into this role, it gave me a really great grounding in terms of what I needed to do and how I could help the business even further.
So previously you have worked in the banking sector,
Yeah,
haven't you? So how was that transition from the banking sector into material handling?
yeah. So the first thing I want to say, it was retail banking, because
Okay.
everybody says banking like they have this vision of investor, banking,
Yeah.
commercial, and oh wow, that's the big bucks. But it was proper retail high street
Hmm.
banking. So I started at the age of 18 as a cashier in Exeter High Street branch, which is still there today, slightly different but still there. And I did it as a temporary job.
Okay.
Before I went to university, I just wanted to earn a bit of money. My brother was already at uni. Mum was a nurse. Dad was a teacher, and I saw that my brother was, having to work and not get out as much. I was like, you know what, I want to earn some money so I can go to university with perhaps enjoy life a bit rather than have to work all the time and have extra money. But that quickly turned into a very long career that lasted 19 years at
Wow.
Barclays, because I really enjoyed working. I found that, I absolutely loved being in the environment with lots of different people. I was then promoted at the age of 19 to what was then a personal banker. I got my first branch manager's job at the age of 21. And I joke about it a lot because I had two cashiers and a cleaner, but I was still the bank manager on my business card. And it went from there really. 24, I moved to Bristol and ran Barclays Bank
Hmm.
Bristol area. So I had 21 branches. And then at the age of 29, I moved to London and took on a executive position in a national role. So did that for 19 years, as I said, lots of really happy memories. And bit of a career change, as you say.
So quite the journey.
Yeah.
What motivated this significant career change, and has that influenced your leadership skills, do you think?
Yeah, so to answer the first part on what motivated the
Hmm.
change, plainly speaking, I wanted a family, and I didn't want to raise a family in London. I
Yeah.
wanted back where I grew up in Devon to be around my extended family. So that created a geographical change.
Yeah.
And at that point, I knew that if I didn't move away and do something different, I never would. Because I'd already done 19
Yeah.
years. And equally, there was a big part of me that didn't want to travel as much because I was working in London, I was traveling across Europe a lot. Part of my role was covering Western Europe. And I didn't want to raise a family and not be present.
No.
So I needed to find something that I could be based from Devon. And so that was a big factor as well. And the other factor was to test myself. Back to the point I said about if I didn't move then, I could see myself staying in Barclays
Yeah.
forever, which would have been fine. But I had this need to see if I could be good somewhere else.
Yeah.
I felt quite strongly that I knew I was capable and I felt very competent in Barclays, but a lot of that was because I started at the bottom and worked my way up.
You'd been there for such a long time.
Exactly that, Ella. And I got to the point where I was doubting myself. Can I do anything else? Am I good enough? Can I transfer my skills? So yeah, I not intentionally joined the material handling industry. I was contacted and asked to go for an interview. Not look at what the product was, just go and speak to the MD at the time. So it wasn't a conscious decision to come to materials handling. It was a conscious decision to do something very different. Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting initiative and way to look at it, really. And look where you are now.
Yeah, look where I am. So some days I do wonder what have I done. But all joking apart, I am so grateful I did make that leap, and I'm grateful that the MD at the time took a chance on me, because it wasn't common. It's still really unusual. Fast forward 11 years, I still get asked all the time, why on earth did you come from banking to this industry? But yeah, so I am grateful that a chance was taken on me, to be fair, and he does. I'm still in contact, and he does tell me I repaid that risk that he took. But yeah, it has taught me so much about myself as well as business and people.
I think as well, though, even though, banking and material handling, yes, they're very completely different industries, but it sounds like some of those skills have been transferable and within both industries.
Absolutely. Ultimately, I believe, my personal opinion, and I know there'll be lots of opinions, my belief is any senior leadership role fundamentally is about your colleagues and your customer. So whatever product you're selling, of course, it's a big influence of the product or service. But what I have learned is, if you build the right colleague culture and you have the right team around you, and you then understand your customer and those colleagues are competent and capable to deliver, then actually you can be successful whatever industry you're in.
So having a good environment around you.
Absolutely. And there are some, there's some foundational things. You've got to have a good product, you've got to have a good service, you've got to have a good infrastructure and supply chain and all of that. But once those are ticked off, it is about who is working for the organisation, what do they believe in, and actually, are they aligned to the customer? Are they delivering? Are they listening? Are they delivering for the customer? And that's true in banking, and it's true in materials handling, in my view.
Do you have a specific moment that you're proud of, or an achievement that you've made?
So there's two probably significant achievements. One's that's very personal, one's that's very team orientated. And I guess there's a couple personal. The first big moment, I think, was I got awarded in 2008 the Barclays Woman of the Year.
Wow.
Award. So something that I look back now and think, yeah, that was pretty cool. And that was sort of a relative new award. It's part of there's a International Woman of the Year kind of accreditation award that goes on, and Barclays entered that. Started in 2005, I think, that they entered that. And yeah, I was put forward. It was peer-led nominations to start with, and then a judging panel. So the reason I'm proud of that is that I was able to read the words that were written about me by people that worked, exactly, peers, team members, leaders, and then actually an independent judging panel to pick me out of the whole of Barclays UK Retail Bank to win that award. That was really special. And it was a rather lovely dinner and event as well. And I met some amazing women like Joan Armour Trading, and some really inspirational non-celebrity people as well. So that was fabulous. And it's something that's on my CV forever. So I always talk about things that are CV worthy, you should be really proud of. And then there's another team one here. So I remember Net Promoter Score is something that I bore everybody in this company with, and that is our customer satisfaction measurement. We used it in Barclays, and I was very familiar with it because it was part of my responsibility. And when I came here, I asked about it because I was really pleased to see it was a measure that was in Still, but nobody knew anything about it. They didn't really know how it worked, what it meant, what was the importance of it. So in 2014, when I joined, that was one of my first missions to
you implemented.
Deal with that. So it was already here, but to actually bring it to life. So one of the proudest achievements was, as service director, we moved that dial from a number of 36, whereas people understand that's an okay number. In banking, that would have been a brilliant number, but in this industry, it's quite a low number. So the score for our customer feedback was 36 when I joined, and actually it's now industry leading. It's in the mid 60s, and it's been in the mid 60s now for about 5 years in a row. and I'm proud to say we're industry leading. So in terms of achievements, that's massive because that's our
Yeah.
customers telling us how good our products and our colleagues are.
Well, my next question was going to be like, how has this achievement kind of affected your leadership? But as I can imagine, that does, and that's very rewarding.
Definitely. So it's I have 3 C's I talk about. So my
Mhm.
leadership style is to talk about the 3 C's all the time, which are colleague, customer, and company.
Yeah.
So it always starts with colleague, as I've already talked about.
Yeah.
And we look at what can we do with the well-being of our colleagues, making sure we have the right people in the organisation, and do what we can to be in a really good environment, and the culture is one that is inclusive and warm and respectful. Then, if you look at the second C in terms of
Mm.
net promoter score, is our measurement for customer. So actually, because we do independent surveys, that influences my leadership, because we always start from a point of what are our customers saying,
Yeah.
and we use that when we go for new tenders, or we check, are we doing the right things for our existing customers? So in terms of leadership, I'd like to think that people would say that I do talk about the customer a lot, and try and understand what our customers are saying and where we need to improve. But I also think about internal customers. So I believe my team are my customers. I'm here
Okay.
to serve them. So that's my leadership style, is in terms of what can I do to help my team perform better. And I like to think that, as I said, flows through in what I do in terms
Yeah.
of a leadership style.
So earlier you were saying you're married, you have
Yes.
children. Initially, this career jump was one of the reasons you said a geographical thing because
Yep.
you wanted to have a family.
Yep.
How do you balance being an MD and having this role with your personal life and your
Yeah.
personal responsibilities?
So if you ask Matthew, my long-suffering husband, he would say, because it's of him, because he apparently is amazing. He is very good, and in all seriousness, teamwork. So
Yeah.
Matthew and I, he has a full-time job as well that's very demanding and travelling, but we have to work as a team and
Yeah.
balance that. Um, he would also say I don't juggle. He would say in order to priority, it's sort of work, kids, then him. Um, but it is a challenge.
Yeah.
And it is a challenge no matter whether you're a mum or a dad,
Hmm.
grandparent with childcare responsibilities or whatever. It's knowing the really important things. Like yesterday, Lily, my daughter, started secondary school for the first day. I was present. I took her there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to miss that. But that means then I have to compromise some other hours. Other parts of the day, evenings, I'm able to work, if I'm not doing something with the kids or something personally. So it is that balance, but
Yeah.
I am far from getting that right balance or being an expert in it. It's something I'm constantly having to work on. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's knowing what's really important, the things you can't miss, either at work or at home, and making sure they're a priority.
Yeah. I was going to say as well, what would you say like the key tip is for that? But as you say, teamwork is massive.
And having a team that understands that.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that I have a team that do know how hard I work.
Yeah.
So when I'm not here, that they understand why.
They understand why. Yeah.
Exactly, and I don't then feel guilty,
Hmm.
because that can be something if I'm not here and I don't turn up till 9 o'clock some days, and
Yeah.
they've all been here since 7:30. The team, I don't ever doubt that they think that, oh yeah, she's the MD and she's got it easy.
Yeah.
And also having a team that can cover. So if I am away and not contactable for any reason, it's having people that if there's something going on that needs
Yeah.
urgent attention, I've got people that can deal with that. That's very important.
So, do you have a mentor or somebody that sticks out as a big influence within your career?
Yeah, I get asked this quite a bit as well in
Mm.
terms of mentor, and
Yeah.
it's probably not one individual, but there will be 2 or 3 key people in my life as I've gone along.
Yeah.
The sort of, obviously parents, obviously I say that, but for a lot of people it's parents, and they were for me like grafters, hard workers.
Yeah.
So without a doubt, they have been, rather than mentor, they've been a massive influence about how I approach work and life. But then in terms of from a career aspect, the first person that comes to mind was the first manager that took a chance on me to be that branch manager at the
Yeah.
age of 21, where everybody thought he was mad. It was never done before. And literally, and I saw him fairly recently, actually. He's retired down in Cornwall. And he used to call me his pocket battleship. And he'd throw me in the deep end. He was a smoker, and he used to write me notes on the back of his fab packet, literally, and go, right, you're running that meeting. And at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, like what? But I realised that he just saw something in me
Yeah.
and said, no, go do it. Had absolutely belief in me. So I look back and think that was a pivotal
Hmm.
moment. I then have had 2 very influential female leaders in my life.
Okay.
So in Barclays, in 2005, a lady called Deanna Oppenheimer came from the States, and to run the Barclays UK Bank. She brought with her a couple of people, one of which was another lady called Erin Bietza. And again, I'm still in contact with Erin today. And I was an area director at the time for Barclays. And I just met with them and chatted to them. And they were like, we want you to come to head office. You need to influence this bank on a wider scale. And they just showed me about what women can do, because they were the first very female leaders. Deanna was the first female leader of
Mhm.
Barclays Bank as CEO. And yeah, so I look, and they were just really good human beings, but were really tough leaders as well,
Powerful.
powerful
Yeah.
leaders, to the point where Deanna was voted one of the top 25 powerful women in banking globally. In
Mhm.
2007, she got that award. And then I ultimately, my last role was working directly for her across Europe and the UK, as I said. So yeah, two people that, rather than mentors, they were just people that I looked up to and
Yeah.
really showed me, how to lead in a really inspirational, impactful.
And it sounds like as well that you've had different people throughout different
Yep,
stages of your career. Essentially, I don't know, would you say that they helped influence the path that you kind of,
definitely,
yeah?
without a doubt, and giving me the confidence that I potentially didn't have.
Yeah.
So even, as I said, the MD that recruited me here, he, again, not a mentor, but somebody that I would definitely say I looked up to and learnt from.
Yes.
But it's taking that chance, seeing something in me that maybe I doubted, and then leading in a way that was very, yeah, inclusive and open and tough. At
Mm.
times, all of those people were tough bosses,
Yeah.
tough to impress, tough to work for, demanding, yet very appreciative when you worked
When
hard
you
and
worked hard.
got things right, and could
Yeah.
tell that you were really making an effort to do things in the right way. So yeah, it's more about the kind of person I look up to. I've got a little mantra I use a lot about. There's three things I believe about careers. You should always choose your attitude, choose your role model, and have fun. So if I think about the middle one, choose your role model, I always, rather than saying there's one mentor, it's been people that I've looked up to
Yeah.
all the way, and think that's the kind of leader I want to be. That's how I want to be talked about.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, I don't think it's a coincidence that the two women I talked about, Deanna and Erin, both did those jobs with a family. Yeah,
Yeah.
with a family as well. So back in the day when I worked for them, I didn't have children, but looking back now, that gives me confidence that they were able to do what
They
they
can
did.
do it and you can.
Exactly. And I've learned as much from bad bosses as good bosses.
Okay.
So I had a couple of people that in my career, and I've been very lucky with my direct leadership,
Mm.
but there's been people I've seen in senior roles that I've realised I never want to be like.
Be like that.
Yeah, and I've learned as much from them and about how they make people feel and decisions they've made and how they've gone about it, as probably as much as I've learned from the really good leaders I've had.
Yeah. What are the biggest challenges that you've faced?
Oh. Um, so big challenges. I think at
Yeah.
a macro level, there's three big events that have happened in the UK that I was in roles, and I think most people were in roles that they can look back and go, how did that impact me
Yeah.
professionally? The first one was the financial crisis. I was working at Barclays at the time,
Mhm.
and obviously that floored. The banking sector. That was really tough. I was leading a team, and part of my responsibility was incident management. So yeah, looking back then, that was really tough. We were doing, working till the early hours of the morning, quite often on communications, because we just needed to calm everything down for our customers. So yeah, it was a really tough time. Then if I fast forward, you've got kind of COVID,
Yeah.
that I was here. So I was the service director during COVID. So the impact not only on people's health and well-being, but then on the company and the
Yeah.
financial performance and our customers. So that was a really challenging period. And then we had obviously the fuel crisis, supply chain crisis, which is more recent. So that was my first year of being an MD, and it was like, whoa, okay, this happened. Yeah, so they're three big sort of macroeconomic
Yeah.
impacts that really rocked how I was able to lead
Mhm.
and what I was able to do. That was challenging.
What about on a more micro level within, since you've been here at
Mm.
Still and specifically being a managing director with the people, has there been any kind of challenges you faced with that?
Yeah, so there's always challenges. This industry is one where every day there's something different,
Yeah.
but that's part of the reason I love it as well. But challenges are out. It's an industry that is very competitive in the UK, and therefore you have to make sure that you are different. How do you ensure that you are different and can be successful and
Mhm.
achieve growth and aspirations for your team and for the organization. And it's balancing that, what I want to do for the team and grow versus, as a manufacturer, we
Mm.
have big targets as part of the Kion group that we need to achieve.
Yeah.
So the challenges are making sure that balance is a really healthy one. But yeah, since, very specifically since being the MD, it's recruitment. I talk about the culture a lot here.
Yeah.
So, recruiting the right people, that is a constant challenge, and any employer will tell you that is a challenge. But yeah, specifically, yeah, customer topics, again, type of industry you're in, it's serious stuff. You
Yeah.
need to make sure the health and safety is where it needs to be, and operations are, because customers rely on you for them to be successful.
Hmm.
And that's a challenge, moving from, I was B2C, so business to
Yeah.
customer, moving to B2B.
B2B.
That's, that was a
Different.
shift as well, yeah, for me to understand that there's an end customer. There's
Yeah.
a very different dynamic there. So
So how do you think that you've overcome these challenges, or how do you try to overcome these challenges?
it comes back to team.
Yeah.
It's picking people around me that fill my weak spots.
Mm.
So I am not, and never will be, an industry expert. My knowledge of fork trucks in a technical, detailed way, the team will tell you it is not, you know, um, uh, you know, anywhere near as good as most of the people in this company, because I don't see that as my, skill set or what I can bring. So by overcoming them, it's looking at what can I bring and how do I then build a team
Around you. Yeah.
exactly around my gaps
Mm.
or my strengths. So that is definitely a way to overcome those challenges, knowing you've got a team that can pick up whatever comes our way. The other thing is my approach. So I try and be very calm. I'm not a shouter. I'm very, passionate about what I do,
Yeah.
but I always try and be logical and calm. And again, when you're in a challenging situation, that pays dividends. So if you can try and distance yourself and be calm, whatever's thrown at you, then I think that makes a big difference, because you're not acting on impulse or
No.
emotion, more on logic and rational thought. So I try and do that in everything I do. Don't always achieve that, but I really
You
make an effort
try.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a young woman aspiring to come into the material handling industry?
What I would say is, I'd like to talk to just young people that are looking for a
Yeah.
career, that not to rule out our industry, because people would look at it as I did initially
Yeah.
and go, what? Why would I want to get into that? What's that all about? The one thing I'd say, it is so diverse. So whatever your strength, like yours in marketing, or somebody that's really good as an engineer and
Yeah.
very technical, there is a place in the materials handling industry for people of all walks of life and all strengths, because you need to have customer skills,
Yeah.
we need technical skills, we need product skills, we need training, we need HR, we need finance. So if you think about, materials handling, people think you need to be an engineer, you need to be technical. Yes, that's a massive part of it,
Yeah.
but it's so much broader. So to answer your question more specifically, I'd say give it a chance, understand what the materials handling industry is,
Yeah.
because it isn't just about fork trucks.
No.
Simple as that.
There's a lot more other elements to
And
it.
it's international. So if
Yeah.
you think about it, fork trucks are all over the world. So for people that are perhaps aspiring to work overseas,
Mhm.
it's a great transferable skill. I've had engineers here that have emigrated to Australia, that are, have moved to an organisation. We don't have, still isn't operations dealers in Australia, but we've
Yeah.
facilitated that move to another Kion company. So yeah, it's a really interesting and diverse industry. So my advice would be, don't rule it out, because I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of people do, or don't even consider it.
And you're just talking about transferable skills.
Yeah,
Obviously, your history within the banking industry.
yeah.
How does this compare to the material handling industry?
So it's about customers.
Mhm.
It's about understanding customers and delivering on what they need. So that is a transferable skill. If you've got the customer at the heart of what you do.
Yeah.
The other transferable skill, I guess, is general leadership. So my view, again, there's some real fundamentals about leadership. Whatever job you do, if you're in a leadership role, you should be able to be successful.
Yeah.
In terms of people that we employ, what we find is we get people from all walks of life. I've got a couple of employees that used to work in the hotel sector because of where we are in Devon. You know, they've moved from roles that were either in sales in hotels or operational roles in hotels, administration, that have come in here. We have people from military backgrounds. We've got people, as I said, from all walks of life that join the organisation. So I think generally it's about having, you know, being able to talk to people, having good interaction skills, being able to work hard. I talk about, I've used the word before, being a grafter.
Yeah.
You know, I think all those are transferable skills in whatever you do.
Yeah. So generally, the UK is regarded as a progressive leader on the world stage. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think we punch above our weight in terms of size. If you look at the
Mm,
size of our, you know, country and the history and legacy of how we have been at the forefront of many, you know, business and industry firsts, and yeah, just our involvement in the world. Definitely, we are progressive. Um, I think there are some industries that are more progressive than others, and I
yeah.
think there's areas now that other parts of the world are really accelerating, and we can learn from, definitely. So yes, we're still very much on the world platform as
Yeah.
a leader, but we need to make sure we're watching and learning from other countries that are really accelerating now.
And you mentioned how it's different within different industries.
Yeah.
What about the material handling industry in particular?
Yeah, so in materials handling, I think um, we definitely have a really interesting market here because, again, for the size of our
Yeah.
country, it is, you know, a big market, and it's really competitive. And it feels like people now, over the last few years, are really looking at new technologies, really interested in things like automation, which is really progressive, robotics. And there are other countries, undoubtedly, across the world that are far more advanced.
Mm,
But in terms of in Europe, and the adaptation and a willingness to change, you know, I do think that the materials handling industry can play a big part in that, and make sure that we continue to be, you know, known as a dominant force
yeah.
in this topic, because as I said, it's one that we have a big presence in already. So we need to continue to use that in a really positive
Continue
way.
to build on it
Exactly.
positively.
Yeah.
And what about inclusivity and diversity within the industry?
Yeah. So that's an interesting topic because I would say that when I first joined 11 years ago, you know, it didn't feel very diverse and inclusive, and that wasn't intentional. You know, that really was just a nature of where it had come
Just
from.
how it was at that time.
Exactly, and it was, you know, super technical and
Yeah.
super knowledgeable. But yeah, did I have to be, you know, being very honest, stepping in from the banking, that it felt like it had really progressed in terms
Hmm.
of topics like diversity and inclusion that we've been talking about for a number of years. To walk into this industry, it did feel like, oh, that wasn't quite at the same level I was
Yeah.
used to. Just by the very fact of, you know, being a female was, again, there was a big campaign in banking about promoting, making sure that women had a strong voice
Yeah.
and an equal share of, you know, the opportunity. Not that I'm a fan of quotas, just to say that I believe that actually it should be about the right person for the right job. I've never been a fan of, you know, installing quotas in organisations to get more women, because that doesn't necessarily help our cause, because people question whether you're there on merit or because of a number.
Yeah.
But in terms of, back to your question on the progression, how progressive we are in, you know, culturally, diversity, inclusion, um, I've seen such an acceleration, such a willingness to want to make sure that this industry is, you know, inclusive and diverse and should reflect our customer base.
Yeah.
So again, we're always bringing it back to the customer. If our customers are really diverse, then why shouldn't the
Why
organisation that
shouldn't
serves
we
them?
be? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
And what about here at Still? How do you make sure you reinforce this inclusivity and diversity?
Yeah. I find that really tough because
Mm,
I am not an expert, and I have my own, you know, biases, unconscious as they are,
yeah.
and my, because we're all, you know, brought up in a certain way, and we all have our own experiences. So it's something I'm really careful about and mindful of. But what I decided to do a couple of years ago, I thought, how can I make a difference here and make sure I set the right tone and make this a priority? And it simply comes down to respect, in my view.
Mm,
So my principle is about people should be treated respectfully, and we should absolutely aim to be respectful at all times, no matter what people's preferences,
yeah.
beliefs, all the different nuances of people there are now. I'm not going to list them because there are so many, but it comes back to just being respectful to each other. And that's the core principle that I hang on to.
Mm.
And it's something that you'll see downstairs. It's over the kind of where you walk up the stairs, there's, a respect sign there, in terms of that's what we should be about,
Yeah.
because everything stems from that. So if you start with a respectful attitude, then naturally, I believe you should be inclusive in and allow diversity,
Yeah.
because you're respecting people's differences.
Respecting people's differences anyway.
Exactly.
So you've just been speaking about the past in terms of inclusivity and diversity. Now thinking about the future, what would you like to see? How would you like to see this progress more and evolve more?
So I do have a bit of a theme here, in terms of I'd love to think that when my children enter the workforce, it's
Yeah.
just not a topic we talk about, because when you're not talking about it, it's not a
It's
problem.
not a big deal
Yeah,
either.
exactly. And I was thinking, again, I was asked that fairly recently in a different kind of interview, and it was really hard to answer that. But that, I decided, is the answer, that actually, if it's something we don't have to constantly talk about or try hard to do, so it's a bit like customer satisfaction. If you think about how that is such a big topic for all industries now, and our industry even more so, and it really wasn't, it was kind of one of those factors. We need to think about it like that. It's one of the things we just do,
Yeah.
that's an assumed priority, that we should be inclusive and we should be diverse and we should be accepting and respectful and tolerant. So yeah, that's my wish, if you like, or aspiration, that it's just not something that comes up all the time, because it's just naturally it happens.
Yeah, and I'd like to think that in time that it will become what they call it a norm, a general norm
Exactly.
within society.
Yep.
So it's not talked about, it's not made a big deal.
You don't need a policy,
Yeah.
or you don't need, or you might need a policy, but it's one of those ones you dust off because you don't need to refer to it. Exactly that.
Yeah.
It needs to be just something that is a norm, and is something that is what we call a hygiene factor.
Yeah.
That just happens.
And could you tell me a little bit more? You told me about fostering this atmosphere about inclusivity and diversity, but how do you foster that?
Mm. It's a really good question that's made me think, how do I? And it's very easy for me to say. And it's probably the team
Yeah.
are better placed to tell you if that's real or not, and true. Uh, just general behaviour. And I think the way I'd answer that is, actually, you have to then draw the line somewhere. So there's the carrot and the stick in everything. So you set out the culture you want and the atmosphere you want to have in an organisation, and yes, we can talk about it. But when it comes to it, it's where something doesn't live up to that standard. How do you act? So we've, again, worked really hard on making sure that if something isn't in line with the respectful nature we expect,
Yeah.
and we have values that are very dominant in how we performance manage people, it's not just about the what, it's the how. You have to apply those. So if somebody isn't living to those standards and not doing things in a respectful way, that has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And I think if people see that and feel it, that is how then that is fostered in an organisation, because
Okay.
people don't see it as just a bunch of words on a wall.
No.
Or
How
on a
you
bit of
actually
paper.
do react to it.
Exactly. So, and that's a very negative answer, but I think that's really important,
Yeah.
because it holds people to account for those behaviours. But equally, you should celebrate them. So every year we have an award ceremony here in Still UK that are called the Still Way Awards, and they are based on behaviours. So people get nominated by their peers for their behaviours and how they, and their values and how they bring those to work. And so, back to that carrot and stick, we are rewarding people when they demonstrate such positive values and behaviours, and we tackle it when it's not there.
Interestingly as well, you just said that these are nominated by the peers.
Yes.
So they're the people that work together. They see
Exactly.
how each other's behaviours are.
Exactly. It's no good me doing it.
No.
When that door's shut, I don't know what's going out there.
Yeah.
And I am fully aware that, when I walk around, I'd like to think people are very, normal and natural with me. But I understand that, sometimes I won't see all the different behaviours that are out there. So it's really important. It's peer-led nominations, because, as you say, that's the people that feel it every day. So they're the ones that should be nominating.
And how they act when,
no
you're
one's
not
looking.
right there.
Back to the point, when the leader's not looking, what's happening?